Despite staggering Russian losses of 180,000 soldiers killed or wounded, Putin is setting the stage for a new offensive within days. In fact, it may have already started by the time you read this. Since the Kremlin appointed General Valery V. Gerasimov as Russia's new theater commander, we have seen a steady buildup of Russian forces in Ukraine. Ukrainian intelligence, with support from U.S. intel, estimates that there are now more than 320,000 Russian soldiers in eastern Ukraine. This is twice the size of Putin's initial invasion force. What's more, Russia also has approximately 150,000 to 250,000 soldiers in reserve, either completing training or being positioned inside Russia to join the fight at a moment's notice. Russian artillery barrages had risen from an average of about 60 per day 4 weeks ago to more than 90 per day last week, with 111 Ukrainian locations targeted on one day alone. As of this writing, February 1st at 1400 hours Eastern Standard Time UTC-5, Russia has intensified artillery bombardments at a rate not seen since September of last year. This week, Russia has also deployed tens of thousands of soldiers to probe Ukrainian defenses along a 140-mile stretch of the front line. Russian forces conducted a reconnaissance in force in the neighboring Luhansk region on January 27, breaking through Ukrainian defenses near Ternova. This is happening right now. The winter break is over. I believe Putin wants to retake as much ground as possible before the arrival of Western armor later this spring. That means he is working against the clock to renew his assault. Even though Russia has only taken a single town over the last 6 months of fighting, Putin has been actively acquiring new weapons and more ammunition, by both ramping up their production and also acquiring more weapons from other jerk-off states like Iran and North Korea. Satellite imagery reveals that Russia has been withdrawing a lot of equipment from storage areas over the past 2 weeks. In the Black Sea, the Russian Navy has been performing interesting maneuvers. According to naval news, Russian Navy ships and submarines left their base at Novorossiysk in the Black Sea en masse. This is highly unusual and may indicate the beginning of active operations. The last time naval news reported an unusual spike in Russian Navy activity, it preceded extensive missile strikes on Ukraine. This could be a preparation for missile attacks from Russia's Kilo-class submarines. They've been used in the past to launch Kalibr cruise missile attacks on Ukraine. But the most alarming reason for the naval moves could be in preparation for amphibious landings in southwestern Ukraine to establish a land bridge to Transnistria. Meanwhile, in the Russian puppet state Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko announced the expansion of defensive joint military drills with Russia along Ukraine's border. Russia continues to amass troops and equipment in Belarus. As for Belarusian conscripts, it's worth noting that the majority, perhaps 90%, do not support Russia and would likely desert if pressed into combat against Ukraine. Also, the Belarusian army has never been involved in any military actions since gaining independence in 1991. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces are quickly becoming the most battle-hardened fighting force in all of Europe. Putin has also given control of some aircraft from Russia's Air Force over to Wagner. You read that right. The brutal, private mercenary group now has fighter jets. The legal, logistical, and command framework for Wagner's air operations remain murky and hard to fathom, but one thing is certain: expect to see both Wagner and Russia's Air Force participate in this new offensive. This situation is evolving quickly. It will take a full day for Medium to fully distribute this writing, so an offensive could have already begun in earnest by the time you read this. One thing is certain: Russian forces are thawing out, making tactical moves, and are more active now than at any time in the last several months. Put that together with the fact that Putin knows Western armor is en route to Ukraine by March or April, the Leopard 2 at least, and you have a recipe for renewed Russian aggression. Russia is in a race to beat the longer-range weapons arriving in Ukraine over the next several weeks. It's not clear whether Putin's new offensive would gain any new territory or be successful by any measure, but I expect to see Russia perform massive, simultaneous attacks from the east, north, and south any day now. To Ukraine, stay alert, stay alive.